Hi there, Sean Winters here, Senior Pastor Calvary Church, and just wanted to greet you as I'm out walking here in the Victoria Carver Park Reserve. It's kind of near our house, and it's a lot of fun to have a park like this close to us. And Sam asked me to share a devotional. We're doing red letters, black letters of Jesus Christ and the stories of not only what he said, but what he did. And so in my conversation with Sam, I asked him, red letters or black letters? He said, well, there's a lot of people choosing red letters, so I'm going to do a black letter. And I want to talk to you about this experience. And the thing I want to kind of highlight is that sometimes we struggle with doubt. I think we have doubt about ourselves. We have doubt about maybe our calling. We have doubt about our faith in God. And when we read scripture, I find that that's not a foreign concept. So if you struggle with doubts, you're in high school. Our kids, we had 3 kids graduate high school. Annie a year ago and Zach 3 years ago. They were part of Summit. Caden is a senior this fall. And there's all sorts of doubts. There's things that we all struggle with. But in the story I want to tell you is Jesus, and he was preaching on a hill. And you can kind of see I'm actually on a trail, and there's bikers and whatnot coming around. But Jesus did some teaching, and it was an opportunity to teach and preach and to present the gospel. And I saw, as I read this out of Mark chapter 6, that the disciples, they just couldn't seem to figure it out. They struggled. And in this story, preceding where I'm going to talk about, he fed the 5,000. He fed them all, filled them up. And yet they still doubted. They collected all the extras. They had all the extra food there. That's maybe a hill that's not a big hill, but he taught a hill, and on the other side, if we turn around, there's a lake. Let's go look at the lake. All right, before we go out and look at the lake a little bit, I want to read to you out of Mark 6, beginning of verse 45. And right before this is when Jesus fed the 5,000 there near the Sea of Galilee. So it says in verse 45, immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him on Bethsaida while he dismissed the crowd. After leaving them, he went up on the mountainside to pray. Later that night, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on the land. He saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. And the wind just blew my pages, so I got to hold it differently. Shortly before dawn, he went out to them, walking on the lake, and he was about to pass by them. But when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost. They cried out because they saw him, and they were terrified. Immediately he spoke to them. Okay, here's a red letter. Jesus spoke these words and said, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." Then he climbed in the boat with them, and then the wind died down. They were completely amazed, for they had not understood about the loaves, and their hearts were hardened. Curious word. When they crossed over, they landed in Gennesaret and anchored there. As soon as they got out of the boat, the people recognized Jesus. They ran throughout the land, whole region, carried the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into villages, towns, or countryside, they placed the sick in the marketplaces. They begged him to let them touch even the edge of his cloak, and all who touched it were healed. All right, so here we are by the lake, and the issue is doubt, right? Doubt about faith, doubt about self, doubt about kind of what's the future going to be. And the disciples kind of revealed that. So there they were, having watched him feed the 5,000, and they just didn't get it. And then they're out in the middle of the water, and they doubted they were going to make it. Like the wind was against them. They were pulling on the oars. They didn't know they were going to make it. And then Jesus comes walking across, and it says Jesus actually starts to walk right past them. And it says they doubted. And then after all that, it says their hearts were hardened. So we find great consolation. We say like commonality in the struggles that they faced. But I think 4 things that we see in Jesus, and I want to just highlight these 4, and then I'm going to let you go and have some conversation about it. Well, first of all, Jesus revealed himself, right? Jesus said, let's feed them. And they said, how are we going to feed them? And he took the fish and loaves and multiplied them. He revealed himself. And I think that's what Jesus does to you and me today, that he reveals himself. Number two, Jesus prayed. It says he went to the hills and he prayed and he prayed and he prayed. He prayed all night. In fact, he was up in the hills somewhere where he could see out on the lake, and he saw him struggling, but he just kept praying. And we get that reminder that God not only, is revealed through Jesus Christ, but that Jesus Christ prays or intercedes for us. That in your doubts, Jesus is going to reveal himself. He's going to pray for you. He's going to speak. He's going to advocate before God for you. But then it's also going to come, and when he sat in the boat, he calmed down the waters. They went from waves to this. Jesus brings calm in the midst of storms. He went and he sat down beside him. He revealed himself. He prayed. He spoke to God on their behalf. He calmed the storm. And number 4, he sat with them. I think one of the cool things is that God is near, that God is with us, Emmanuel. The reason I came to this lake and I came to this spot was because of this dock. All right, let me tell you the story of this dock. Right before I accepted the call to become pastor of Calvary Church, I came to this very spot, and I took a picture of the end of that dock. It was on a cold fall day, and I was running. This is about 4 miles from our home, and there's a cool trail that goes around this lake, and it was a long run, and I came out to this spot. I looked at the end of that dock and said, Lord, I don't know what the future holds. It's kind of like walking off the end of that dock, but that I know you're with me, that you're abiding with me, that you're Emmanuel. And so I'm going to take this step of faith. Right? If you're doubting, if you're struggling, if you're wondering where God is, if you're wondering about yourself or about your faith in God, know that Christ is real, that he is going to reveal himself to you, that he's going to advocate for you, that he is going to come and bring a calm in the midst of storm. And then in those times of feel like you're stepping off the end of a dock, Christ is with you. I'm praying for you. I appreciate each one of you. And it's okay to doubt. The disciples doubted, and upon their faith, upon their proclamation of the gospel, the church was built. And it's on people like me, but more people like each one of you, that the gospel is going to go forth. That God has you where he wants you, and doubts are okay. Trust in him, lean into him, know that Jesus is with you, and I'm praying for you. Thanks, Sam. Thanks to the leaders of Summit. Thanks to all of you for what you do, living each day for Jesus Christ. He's near. Stay near him. Go in his grace.